Are NDEs the best proof of life after life? Why does Dr. Raymond Moody say they are not? And what then constitutes a better proof? After 50 years of intensive research, Dr. Raymond Moody has found the answers to these questions. In this video, you'll not only find out what these answers are, but you will also learn about several amazing cases that, according to Moody, actually constitute a better proof of the existence of life after life. But why does he say he has found a better proof of life after life? According to Dr. Moody, although near-death experiences have been considered the best proof of life after death, actually they are not. But why? Because, as he points out, some scientists still claim that near-death experiences are nothing but hallucinations caused by a lack of oxygen to the brain, or fear, or too much anesthetic, or not enough anesthetic.
Yeah, well, in terms of life after death and near-death experiences, I never believed that thing about, oh, this is oxygen deprivation to the brain, because one of my own professors of medicine, when I first went to medical school, told me about her experience when she was unsuccessfully trying to resuscitate her mother. And as her mother was dying, she herself, this physician, said that she got out of her body. She saw the scene from above. She saw her mother now in spirit form. She saw her mother recede into this tunnel in light with the relatives coming forward and so on. And subsequently, hundreds of people like that who were not ill or injured themselves, but who were there at the death of someone else. And that as that person was dying, the bystander had all of these elements that we think of as a near-death experience. Therefore, I knew from the very beginning that this is not oxygen deprivation to the brain. Because if the bystanders who are not ill or injured have the same experience, it's something else.
Dr. Moody found that these experiences that are in fact shared death experiences, as he prefers to call them, constitute the irrefutable proof of life after life.
The real fact is that bystanders at the death of someone else who are not themselves ill or injured have all of these same things that we think of as a near-death experience. Often as the person in the bed dies, the bystander says, as grandma died, I got out of my body and went partway toward this light with her, or the room filled with light, or I saw apparitions of my mother's deceased relatives come into the room, or I heard music. Or most remarkably, AJ, I've had a number of people over the years who've told me that they empathically co-lived the life review.
Dr. Raymond Moody has researched many cases of shared death experiences together with the best-selling author and filmmaker Parr, with whom he has written 6 books about NDEs and the afterlife. After so much research, how do they define shared death experiences?
In all of our books, we've had examples of shared death experiences. It's when a person who is well shares the death experience of a person who is dying. For example, there's cases reported in which medical doctors, nurses, and other hospital personnel see the spirit of a patient leave their body at the point of death. These doctors aren't related to the patient, so you can't really say they're empathic experiences. And the same would go for something we call precognitive experiences, in which the spirit of a dying patient appears to someone who is not close to them at all necessarily, but usually shared death experiences happen between loved ones. That is true. The primary difference between a shared death experience, though, and a near-death experience is that the shared death experience is an objective experience. So, in other words, a near-death experience can only be experienced by one person, and they're the only ones who can really truly describe it. Evidence in court wouldn't work that way. You can't just have one person providing evidence. You have to have confirmation of those events, and that's what a shared death experience does. Is that a person who experiences someone else's death experience is providing objective proof that something happened when that person died, something, for want of a better word, something mystical. Over the years, it's funny how attitudes have changed. People know what a near-death experience is, and they know the so-called symptoms of the near-death experience, out-of-body experiences and seeing a bright light. And they're no longer afraid to talk about it. And that is the same thing that's going to happen with shared death experiences. Once people get word of what a shared death experience is, they're going to realize that they've experienced them themselves.
Now that we know what shared death experiences are, let's see several examples.
At Fort Dix, New Jersey, I was lecturing into the Army chaplain corps, and a young sergeant who was there came up afterward, and he told me that sometime before he had been admitted to the hospital suddenly. I forgot for what illness, but he had a cardiac arrest in the hospital. Unbeknownst to him, his sister, who had suffered from diabetes for a long time, was admitted to the hospital at the same time, unbeknownst to each other. And she died. And the young man was revived and returned. And so when he came back, he said that he had met his sister in the hospital and had said goodbye to her. And since she died in the same hospital that he was being resuscitated.
Amazingly, both Moody and Perry have had shared death experiences involving their own dying mothers.
One day, we're sitting on Raymond's porch, and it had to set the scene. Raymond is rocking, of course, like he was at the porch. And we were right on the creek. It was noisy creek. I have all the audio tapes. It's really kind of fascinating. And we started talking about shared death experiences. And we realized that we had both had a shared death experience. Mine happened when my mother was dying of dementia. And I was preparing to leave for the care facility because she was getting worse and worse, when I got a call from Vernon Neppy. Neppy was the head of neuropharmacology at University of Washington in Seattle. And I had worked with Vernon on a book project maybe 5 or 6 years earlier, but I had not communicated with him since then. No phone calls, no emails, no nothing. And he called me and he immediately said, I was sitting at a kitchen table today reading the newspaper, and a female voice said, "Call Paul Perry." And I ignored it. And within a few minutes, I heard the voice again say, "Call Paul Perry." So here I am calling as ordered, and I don't know why. And his medical field matched perfectly with my mother's disease. She had dementia or Alzheimer's. And so I told him what was wrong with her, and asked if there were any new medications or any new therapy that I could use. And he gave me some advice. And in the midst of this advice, I got another phone call coming in. And I said, "Vernon, I've got to take this call." And I answered it, and it was the care facility telling me that my mother had just passed away. Now, that's, of course, a pretty good shared death experience for a number of reasons. And so we talked about that, and then Raymond talked about his own shared death experience.
As my mother was dying, we were no longer in a three-dimensional space in a hospital room. It was an indefinable space, a non-three-dimensional geometry. It's like you couldn't tell where you were looking at things from. And my mother, the room was filled to me with light and energy that was moving. It's moving, but not in the sense that visible. It was like things were just dynamic. And I heard my mother twice say, "I love you," but her mouth wasn't moving. But it was very echoing, loud. And my wife experienced something. My sister felt the presence of my father, who had died 18 months before. My brother-in-law experienced something. And so I had been studying these shared death experiences before, but oddly enough, hearing that, I mean, having it myself, you have to process it at a different level, right? So I backed away from the research for a while just to figure out what was that, processing my own stuff. But then, went back. You hear the most astonishing things from people.
As we have seen, since shared death experiences are not caused by a lack of oxygen to the brain or due to drugs or anesthetics, they constitute the best proof of life after death.
For 50 years, people have been asking me, usually because they're mourning the loss of a loved one or facing death themselves, or just in that midlife curiosity wanting to know about the afterlife, is there proof? It's almost desperation. People want so much to know. Is it rational to be confident that there's an afterlife? That's what people want to know. And I say absolutely yes.
If you'd like to know more about the afterlife, check out this video about afterlife communications.